and welcome to Decoding the Digital Lab with CSols, the podcast that offers strategies and valuable insights on data-driven LIMS and ELN projects. I'm your host, Megan Pettyjohn, and in this series, we're highlighting real-world applications and management of LIMS and ELN systems. In today's episode, we'll be discussing LIMS implementation decisions and optimization strategies. Joining me today is Luke Moser. He's a research scientist and LIMS admin at the University of Washington's Environmental Health Lab. And he has been working with LIMS now for a little over 3 years. He's gone through the strategic selection and implementation process and will be sharing with us his lessons learned and offer some advice to our listeners today. Hi, Luke. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Megan. Thanks for having me.
So, Luke, can you start us off by sharing a brief overview of your role at the University of Washington's Environmental Health Lab?
Yeah, sure. And I think I'd start just tell you a little bit about the lab itself. We're in the Department of Environmental and Occupational Health Sciences. We focus on analytical chemistry work that's related to worker protections. And we do a mix of routine analytical testing and then also research-driven analytical work where we collaborate with other researchers in the department and in other departments within the university, as well as some outside groups external to the university. So I'm one of our 4 research scientists at the lab. So I perform some of our routine industrial hygiene focused testing, as well as work on our research-driven projects. So I'm our primary LIMS administrator in a week-to-week capacity. I spend about 20% of my time is dedicated to working on our LIMS system.
Can you share briefly with us the LIMS journey your lab has gone on?
It's been a slow burn, I would say. We started researching different LIMS vendors in 2020. We selected our vendor is LabWare, is who we ultimately chose. We selected them and began implementation in 2022. We're pretty agile, and so we have had the opportunity to phase in the usage of our LIMS over time, where I think many labs for years, we had what we kind of called spreadsheet LIMS, where all our different information was stored in various Excel worksheets and physical paper file folders in parallel with LIMS. And then over time, LIMS has gradually become our primary system. And then we've let kind of the old, method of tracking our projects and things have kind of slowly fallen away as we've relied more and more on the LIMS system and developed our own internal processes for adoption.
Yeah, I'm sure there are listeners now that can sympathize with your usage of spreadsheets. So your spreadsheet LIMS, I like the term. Before your implementation of your LIMS, can you share your single biggest pain point that LIMS was specifically chosen to solve?
When we get a new project in, the process of digging up old work, old information on things that maybe we worked on 5 years ago or 10 years ago, that could be a real treasure hunt, and follow the breadcrumb trail of going through physical file cabinets, just that process of digging up information from projects from the past.
He mentioned that your lab is relatively small with the 4 to 6 coworkers that you have. I was a little surprised to hear that you opted for an enterprise level, top tier LIMS being LabWare. What was the crucial factor that convinced you to make this significant investment, that it was necessary? And what can other small labs learn from your stability-focused vendor evaluation process?
One thing we really like is the forum, the user forum that is hosted on the LabWare support site. because most of the time, if you have a question about how the limbs work, or you're trying to solve a particular problem or feature, you're probably not the first person who's had that question or had that issue. And so having that searchable forum to either find somebody who's asked about it before, or to create your own forum post, that's been really valuable. We that's one thing that we look for, was like an active user group. And then I think pro of having like a big name LIMS is there are many professionals in the lab informatics space that have experience with labware and are able to help third party consulting companies, in addition to help straight from labware.
Yeah, I'm sure knowing that the LIMS vendor is going to be around in a couple years when you're still using their software, makes you
For
feel more
sure.
comfortable about making such an investment.
Yeah, that's a big part of it too, is like labware is not fly by night. They're not gonna they're not going anywhere. So
You used LIMS consultants for parts of the implementation, right?
yeah, we have worked with
Okay.
consultants from labware as well as some third party consultants.
How should other LIMS teams decide which implementation tasks to outsource to consultants versus which they should build in-house?
We look at our kind of our wish list and our requirements, and we tend to look at what we think are going to be the heaviest lifts, and try to get help with kind of the biggest, seemingly most difficult things, where maybe like we don't see how we would do it, and we just really need a professional who's done a bunch of implementations before, because they've seen it all in multiple configurations. And then we figure we can handle like little incremental improvements over time, or if we find that we really should have done it this other way, and then maybe by then we're familiar enough that we can make little corrections ourselves. And then another thing that I always think about is like, okay, I probably could figure this out over a couple of weeks or a couple of months, or it would maybe take a consultant like a half a day, because they just know what they're looking at, and they've done it before. I'd say one of the most valuable thing that we've gotten from our consultation time and consulting hours has been we've built a video library of all the recorded meetings with consultants, and we've asked them to actually, like, can you record us a demo of how this works, how this feature works. And so then between I've many times I've gone back and watched back through the videos of consultants demonstrating a feature, or showing us them fixing something that was broken, and just like that has been super useful as a teaching tool to learn how to do it ourselves.
When it comes to LIMS training for scientists and staff, what is the key piece of advice you would give to someone learning a new system? How has that impacted your team's adoption and engagement?
I'd say just encourage like daily use of the platform. Even if it's just like aimless clicking around, it feels like you're just playing and wasting time maybe, but you're actually, learning the idiosyncrasies of a piece of software. I think any software takes just time, and I don't think there's a substitute for just exposure to that software.
Switching gears a little bit, looking at your initial implementation, which features, maybe like automated workflows, document control, reports, dashboards, would you say have delivered the most immediate and measurable benefit to your scientists?
Instrument integration has saved a lot of time by combining instrument integration with some logic in the analysis setup, LIMS can select the correct, correct run for each element to make sure we're getting the right piece of data for every result. Being able to quickly find historical project information has also saved a lot of time.
Now, were there any features or system capabilities that you weren't expecting to be valuable, but turned into surprising, unexpected wins for your daily operations?
We knew that LIMS would be valuable for lifecycle management. One aspect of that we hadn't really considered was has to do with like our retention policy. We set up a couple of basic queries, and those help us identify samples that are at the end of their retention period and they're ready to be disposed or in some cases returned to the collaborators. And so that's really helped just our freezers stay orderly.
Now, would you change anything about the approach or path you took when selecting and implementing your limbs?
I think we've done a pretty good job. I don't feel like there's any big regrets about how we approached anything. I think we've all been happy with our kind of incremental phase in and kind of organic growth of the role LIMS plays in our laboratory. I don't know if every lab has the opportunity for that kind of, slow rollout. And, but I hope so, because it's been nice.
As the primary LIMS administrator, can you share a few of the user requests that you receive? And how do those requests drive your weekly optimization work?
Reducing just like friction and the number of mouse clicks it
Mm.
takes to accomplish a task. So sometimes that can be something easy like, hey, we hit the print sheet button a lot when we're generating reports in the ELN. So just like adding a bitmap shortcut to the toolbar can, over time save a lot of searching through the toolbars for, whatever button it is that we use a lot. Or it can be, in the long run time savings to take a day or two to write a subroutine that's maybe going to automate a repetitive process. And so then that saves everybody time down the road, time saving sort of tasks. Also, if I'm asked to maybe fix something that's broken or add an analyte to an assay or something, if I make a short demo video about it, then I'm moving tribal knowledge to institutional knowledge by recording it and having that be part of our library, as well as I'm empowering other users that like, hey, you can do it too.
We've heard others describe a challenge, one of the biggest challenges being you don't know what you don't know regarding LIMS out of the box potential. For you as a new LIMS admin, how do you suggest others navigate the overwhelming amount of features to ensure that they uncover all the options available?
Click around the development environment, try to figure out what different things are for. Ask your vendor a lot of questions, and then record your vendor meetings if you're able to do that. Like record them and save them, because you're gonna forget. If you can record it and save that video to play back later, that's really helpful.
Good advice. What is a process or best practice you've developed that you feel is highly transferable to other LIMS labs?
We call it running notes on our projects, and it's something we added to like our project database table, and it's essentially a HTML based message board. We've been trying to move those email chains and discussions into this running notes message board that's attached to each project. And so now that those discussions and decision-making process can stay associated to the project with pretty low friction.
I'm sure it makes things easier to find too when it's typed in.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as we wrap up, we have a question that we normally ask all of our guests. And that is if you could give one final piece of advice or like a pro tip to our listeners who may be struggling with their LIMS adoption or implementation or daily admin so that they can better excel at it, what would it be?
I guess just listen to the users, and like bear in mind that LIMS is it's a constant, it's a living system. It should be a constant improvement project. The scientists and the lab manager are probably using different features of the LIMS, and just like get everybody's perspective, try and learn about everyone's friction points. The goal of the LIMS, it should make people's jobs easier and not be another chore. And then I'd say just document your work. If you can just document like how does your lab use your LIMS, and keep those updated because it's going to change over time. I think that's helpful to users to have, a succinct place to find the information kind of in language that's helpful.
I love that. Luke, thank you so much for giving us some of your time today to share your lessons learned. To everyone else, thank you also for listening. We have a weekly newsletter that we send out. If you're interested in joining that to get more tidbits, please sign up at the link below. Don't forget to subscribe to our Spotify or YouTube channel. And we hope to see you all at our next episode. Thank you.